I still remember the smell of burnt coffee that clung to the office of Aurora Media. The place wasn't glamorous. Chipped desks, buzzing fluorescent lights, that faint metallic tang from the old HVAC system. But for me, it was a workshop of ideas. I'd walk in each morning carrying my oversized thermos and an even bigger sense of ambition, ready to breathe life into whatever campaign landed on my desk. "Claire, you're early again," Maya teased one morning as she passed my cubicle, balancing two bagels on a napkin. Her curly hair was pulled up into a bun, and she wore the kind of smile that made the grind easier. She was one of the few who actually saw me, not just as another worker bee, but as a creative with something to prove. "Early bird gets the clean coffee pot," I said, lifting my mug like a trophy. "Or the stomach ulcer." She shot back with a grin before disappearing toward the design lab. I turned back to my screen, eyes tracing the glowing presentation slides for our latest pitch, Pulse of Tomorrow. It was my baby. Every transition, every tagline, every painstaking color choice was mine. I'd spent nights fine-tuning animations until my eyes blurred, but it was worth it. This campaign could change everything, not just for Aurora Media, but for me. If it landed, we'd go from chasing crumbs to sitting at the table with industry giants. Of course, not everyone shared that passion. Vanessa Hale, our so-called senior strategist, strolled in a full hour late, sunglasses still perched on her head despite the gray New York sky. She was the type who never broke a sweat, yet always seemed camera-ready. I swear she could be caught in a thunderstorm and still manage to look like she'd stepped out of a glossy magazine spread. "Morning, darlings," she sang, setting her designer purse on her desk with a thud. She didn't look at me. She rarely did, but her eyes flicked briefly across my monitor. A faint smirk tugged at her lips. Vanessa didn't need to say anything. Her presence carried an unspoken message. "Whatever you do, I can do better. Or at least, I'll make it look like I did." I bit the inside of my cheek and went back to adjusting my slide deck. The truth was Vanessa had a gift, not for creating, but for claiming. She could walk into a meeting, say 3 vague sentences, and somehow walk out with everyone quoting her like she was the visionary. It was infuriating, but I'd learned to keep my head down and let my work speak for itself. That afternoon, Daniel Cross, our creative director, called a team huddle. He was in his 40s, thinning hair slicked back, always juggling 2 phones like the world would stop spinning if he missed a call. He wasn't a bad guy, just passive, a man who avoided conflict the way cats avoid bathtubs. "All right, team," he started clapping his hands. "Big news. The Pulse of Tomorrow campaign has been submitted to the National Creative Awards. Huge exposure opportunity for Aurora. This could put us on the map." I felt my chest swell. Submitted? Already? That was fast. But before I could ask any questions, Vanessa piped up. "Oh, Daniel, you flatter me," she said with a theatrical laugh, tossing her hair. "I mean, I knew the campaign had potential, but finalist material? That's something else." My hands froze on the notepad in front of me. Did she just... Daniel chuckled nervously, eyes darting anywhere but at me. "Credit to the whole team, of course," he said. "Vanessa just happened to put the final polish on the presentation we sent in." Final polish? My jaw tightened. That was my deck. My late nights. My copy. My design. My everything. And now, in front of the team, Vanessa was basking in the spotlight like she'd birthed the entire campaign. Maya glanced at me from across the table, her expression sharp, protective. She knew. She'd seen me grind this thing into existence. But her warning eyes said what her mouth didn't. "Don't pick a fight. Not here. Not now." I forced my lips into a tight smile and scribbled something useless in my notebook, pretending to take notes. Inside, though, something cracked. I wasn't angry yet, not fully, but I was awake. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The office buzzed with fake congratulations for days after Daniel's announcement. Vanessa soaked it all in, floating from desk to desk like a queen surveying her kingdom. She let people gush over her brilliance, never once correcting them, never once hinting that anyone else had been involved. By the third day, I'd perfected my mask. I smiled when I had to, nodded at passing comments, but inside, I was seething. The bitterness clung to me like secondhand smoke. One afternoon, I lingered near the break room door, just long enough to hear Vanessa bragging to a visiting client. Honestly, it just came to me, she said breezily, stirring sugar into her tea. The whole concept, the slogan, the visual arc, it was one of those lightning bolt moments. My team helped polish, of course, but the vision, that was mine. Lightning bolt moment. My knuckles whitened around the coffee cup I was holding. I could still see the Word doc in my mind. Version 1, titled Pulse Concept underscore V1 underscore CW dot docs. I could see the hours I'd poured into rewriting taglines until they clicked like puzzle pieces. And now Vanessa was packaging all of that as her divine stroke of genius. I didn't even realize Maya had crept up beside me until she whispered, "You're going to break that cup if you keep squeezing it." I exhaled sharply, setting the mug down. "You hear this? Every word." Maya's eyes narrowed. "You should call her out." "Yeah, and then what?" Daniel shrugs and tells me it's a team effort. "No, she's careful. Too careful." Maya folded her arms. "So you're just going to let her steal everything?" For a moment, I wanted to walk away, wash my hands of this place, and let her rot in her own lies. But then Vanessa's laughter rang out from inside the break room, high and false, like glass shattering on tile. And that was the moment something shifted in me. "No," I said quietly, "I'm not." The weeks rolled on, each one worse than the last. Vanessa grew bolder. In meetings, she cut me off mid-sentence, echoing my ideas 5 minutes later, as if they were her own. Daniel smiled indulgently, like a proud dad with his golden child. One Friday, as we prepared for the quarterly client review, Vanessa cornered me by the printer. "Claire, darling," she said, her voice sugar slick, "could you run off a few copies of the presentation? Since you're so detail-oriented." I froze mid-step, the printer humming beside me. My throat went dry, but I forced myself to look her in the eye. "Of course," I said evenly. "Wouldn't want you to get ink on those nails." She smirked, flipping her hair, as she strutted off in heels that clicked like gavel strikes. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, surrounded by drafts of my work. My laptop screen glowed in the dark, illuminating file after file stamped with my initials, my time logs, my fingerprints. I opened the project history on the cloud server. There it was, every version, every change, every revision, all traced back to me. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. My heart was hammering, not from despair this time, but from possibility. Vanessa could take credit in boardrooms. She could pose for the cameras. She could even accept the award if it came to that. But the truth lived here in these digital breadcrumbs. And maybe, just maybe, I could use them. I didn't have a full plan yet, but I had the spark. And sparks, they burn. The Monday after that long, bitter weekend, I walked into Aurora with a fresh layer of steel under my skin. The air felt heavier than usual, the kind of sticky tension that clung to every conversation. I could tell people were starting to believe Vanessa's version of events, the way they leaned toward her in meetings, the way they nodded before she even finished her sentences. Meanwhile, I was becoming invisible in the very place I'd built my reputation. It hurt. God, it hurt. To work twice as hard, to give everything you had, and to watch someone else parade around in your skin. At lunch, I sat alone by the window, picking at a salad I didn't want. A group from the art department laughed at Vanessa's table. And for a moment, I felt like I was back in high school, shoved to the sidelines while the popular girl soaked up the light. Maya slid into the chair across from me, setting down a sandwich. "You're isolating," she said bluntly. "Not on purpose." "Yeah, but that's how it looks. And if you let her box you out, she wins before the awards ceremony even happens." I stabbed a cherry tomato with my fork. "What do you suggest?" I shout, "Liar," in the middle of a meeting. Maya leaned closer. "I suggest you start playing chess instead of checkers." That night, I called my brother Ethan. He was 2 years younger than me, a computer science grad who lived for problem solving. If anyone knew how to frame this battle, it was him. "She's stealing your work?" he asked after I explained everything. His voice cracked with disbelief. "Every last piece of it. And she's about to get on a stage in front of the entire industry." "Claire," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "do you realize how much proof you already have? File metadata, cloud logs, timestamps. That's digital DNA. Unless she's some elite hacker, she can't erase your fingerprints." I rubbed my forehead, the knot between my brows aching. But what if nobody cares? What if they all just clap for her anyway? "Then you make them care." His tone sharpened. "Don't just tell them the truth. Show it. Make it undeniable. Make it so loud the whole room goes silent." His words lit something in me, the same fire that had kept me alive through every rejection, every overlooked promotion. Maybe Maya was right. Maybe this was chess. And the board was already mine if I moved right. Over the next week, I began collecting. Quietly, carefully. I exported version histories, downloaded backups, and stored them on a password-protected drive. I took screenshots of every draft showing my initials. I even pulled late-night recordings from the office's project server, where my login activity painted a picture of someone grinding long after Vanessa had clocked out. I became obsessed. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about justice. I started thinking in terms of angles and timing, not feelings. If Vanessa wanted the spotlight, I would wait until the beam was brightest. And then I'd pull the rug out from under her. Still, I couldn't deny the isolation gnawed at me. Some nights I'd lie awake, wondering if I was turning into her, manipulative, cunning, driven by ego. Then I'd remember her smug laugh in the break room, her manicured finger pointing me toward the printer, her lips curling around my vision. No, I wasn't becoming her. I was becoming sharper than her. And when the time came, she wouldn't even see me coming. One evening, Ethan texted me after I sent him a batch of files. "Ethan, this is airtight, Claire. No jury in the world would side with her if you drop this bomb." Me, good, because I'm not planning to drop it in a courtroom. I stared at the message long after sending it, my reflection glowing faintly in the laptop screen. I wasn't ready to admit it out loud, but deep down I knew. If Vanessa wanted a stage, then that's exactly where I'd bury her. I started treating my work like evidence. The project files were no longer just assets, they were exhibits. I set up a secure folder on a separate drive and labeled everything with a forensic kind of neatness, dates, times, short notes about edits. It felt dramatic, maybe a little theatrical, but I wanted each piece of proof to be impossible to misinterpret. Dr. Lillian Crane was my wildcard. She'd been my professor during grad school, an intellectual with a surgical mind and an obsession for copyright law. When I emailed her, I expected a polite brush-off. Instead, she replied within an hour, asking if I could meet for coffee. She listened while I spilled everything, the presentations, the late nights, Vanessa's smooth grin. Her lips pursed. Digital footprints are your friend, Claire, she said. But you must be careful. Show the evidence at the right moment, in the right way. Public shaming without context can backfire. What's the right way? I asked. Make it undeniable. Show the version history. Show who created what and when. And make sure you have witnesses who can corroborate your story. She suggested I document who in the office had seen me present drafts, who had emailed me feedback, and to collect any timestamps from collaboration tools. She handed me a list of technical steps that made my head spin: metadata exports, hashes, archival copies. Aiken came through with the tech side. He wrote scripts to compile my version histories into a single, clean timeline and put it on an encrypted drive. He even wrote a small program that would display the changes in a way that anyone could understand, like a movie of edits moving across the screen. Watching it made my stomach flip. There I was, making the original edits in a steady progression. Then a later file appeared with Vanessa's name on it without any of the earlier fingerprints. The visual sequence was obscene in its clarity. At work, I kept my face neutral. Vanessa floated around, basking in compliments, posting glossy photos of her creative process on social media with filters and coffee cups staged just so. Daniel praised her in front of clients, and the floor around her was sticky with adoration. But beneath that surface, people started whispering. Small things, a colleague mentioning how I'd stayed late to fix an animation, another laughing about how Vanessa never touched the software. Those whispers were breadcrumbs, and they mattered. Maya became my ally in ways she hadn't been willing to risk before. She started forwarding me casual emails she received, congratulatory notes from clients that referenced my ideas, drafts she had saved that were clearly mine. I don't want to lose my job, she said once, but I don't want to be complicit in a lie either. Her hand shook when she handed me a printout. I mapped out the timeline carefully. The award ceremony would be the perfect stage. Vanessa would be in her element, the lights would be bright, cameras rolling, and the audience would expect a tidy, glamorous victory. That was where I planned to strike. Not with a tantrum, but with an incontrovertible sequence of proof: the edit movie Aiken made, my metadata exports, and corroborating emails. There were logistics to work out. The event had strict security and a packed program. I needed a way to get my files to the main projection system without anyone stopping me. Maya, resourceful as ever, suggested a seemingly absurd plan. We'll use the sponsor's preloaded media slot. They always hand over a USB last minute for commercials. I can sneak yours in. I wanted to laugh at how movie of the week it sounded, but it was brilliant in its simplicity. We rehearsed. Aiken ran the file until it looked flawless. Dr. Crane reviewed my script for presenting the evidence, making sure my words couldn't be parsed as petty. You speak as a professional, she instructed. No theatrics. Let the files do the talking. Let the truth peel back the mask. The week before the ceremony, Vanessa grew cockier. She invited the team to a celebratory dinner and clinked her glass like she already owned the trophy. Daniel made a toast about leadership and vision, scanning the room with that non-committal smile that had become his trademark. I sat there, a plate of pasta growing cold, smiling at the right moments while my mind rehearsed the order of operations for the night ahead. For the first time since this all started, I felt like I had leverage. It wasn't vengeance for vengeance's sake anymore. It was precision. I wasn't going to scream, I was going to demonstrate. And when the light hit, the evidence would be so bright no shadow could hide in it. The week of the ceremony felt like standing on train tracks, waiting for the rumble of steel. Every second dragged and raced at the same time. At Aurora, the office was practically humming with anticipation. Vanessa made sure of that. Can you believe it? she gushed loudly one morning, draping her coat over the back of her chair like a queen tossing aside a cape. Front row seats at the National Creative Awards. I already know what I'm going to say when I win. Something heartfelt. Something inspiring. She turned to Daniel, who beamed back like a proud uncle. You deserve it, he said, clapping her on the shoulder. This is the moment Aurora has been waiting for. Investors are already asking about future campaigns. This is going to open doors. I sipped my coffee, keeping my face blank. Investors. Future campaigns. Their whole castle was being built on sand. Vaya leaned close to me later that day, whispering as she pretended to examine a file. You ready? I nodded once. More than ready. The night before the gala, I couldn't sleep. My apartment was littered with checklists, USB drive, backup drive, presentation order, rehearsed script. Aiken had FaceTimed me earlier, holding up his laptop to show the evidence reel again. It's bulletproof, Claire, he said. Once it's on that screen, she's done. Still, my nerves churned like storm water. I lay awake imagining scenarios, Vanessa denying everything, Daniel throwing me under the bus, the crowd booing me off the stage. Then I picture the opposite. The silence when the edits flashed across the screen, the recognition dawning on faces, the end of her smug smile. When I finally drifted to sleep, I dreamed of spotlights. The day of the ceremony, New York was electric. The venue was a restored Art Deco theater, all gold trim and sweeping velvet curtains. Outside, cameras flashed as industry elites walked the carpet. Aurora Media was given its own little section, Vanessa in the center like a starlet surrounded by her entourage. She wore a shimmering silver dress that caught the light like shards of glass. When reporters asked about her nomination, she launched into rehearsed lines about vision and leadership. Daniel hovered close, nodding like her loyal echo. Maya and I stuck to the edges. She carried the USB in her clutch, her knuckles white against the strap. It's here, she whispered. Our smoking gun. Inside, the theater buzzed with chatter, glasses clinking, programs rustling. The stage glowed under hot white lights, and giant screens displayed the nominees. My heart thumped harder with each announcement, each burst of applause. When Vanessa's name was called as a finalist, Aurora's section erupted in cheers. She stood, blowing kisses like she'd already won. I stayed seated, clapping politely, my face calm. She leaned down to me as she passed. Try not to look too jealous, darling, she whispered, teeth gleaming. I met her gaze evenly. Break a leg, I said. My tone was so smooth she didn't catch the edge in it. Maya glanced at me once Vanessa was out of earshot. That was cold. I shrugged. She wanted the spotlight. She's about to get it. Backstage, Vanessa's voice floated out through the speakers as she rehearsed her lines. I could practically hear the smirk. This award isn't just for me, she said, dripping false humility. It's for everyone who believed in my vision. The crowd laughed warmly, buying every word. I closed my eyes, breathing steady. My pulse matched the rhythm of the event, tightening, waiting, ready to explode. Tonight wasn't just a gala. It was Judgment Day. The host stepped to the podium, voice booming with practiced enthusiasm. And now, the National Creative Award for Best Campaign goes to. The drumroll thundered through the theater. I clenched my fists, palms damp against the silk lining of my dress. Vanessa Hale for Pearls of Tomorrow. The crowd roared. Applause crashed around me like a wave. Cameras flashed, confetti cannons hissed, and Vanessa rose, radiant in her silver gown. She pressed her hands to her chest as if humbled, though I could see the satisfaction gleaming in her eyes. Daniel hugged her like she'd just won him a championship ring. Maya and I clapped, though her nails dug crescents into her clutch. "Here it comes," she murmured. Vanessa glided to the stage, clutching her trophy. The spotlight caught every sequin of her dress, every curve of her self-satisfied smile. "Why, oh," she began, voice trembling with faux emotion. "This is surreal. Pearls of Tomorrow was a vision I had late one night, a spark that grew into something bigger than me. And tonight, standing here with this award, I know that hard work and creativity." My chair scraped back. The sound cut through the applause. Heads turned as I walked down the aisle, calm and deliberate. My heels struck the carpet in a steady rhythm, each step louder than the last in my own ears. Vanessa faltered on stage, blinking. "Ah, Claire." I stopped at the edge of the platform. My voice carried, steady and cold. "You were right about one thing, Vanessa. Creativity is hard work. But this wasn't yours." Gasps rippled through the audience. Phones whipped out. The host stammered, caught between protocol and spectacle. Vanessa laughed weakly. "Claire, darling, not now." I climbed the steps, my heart pounding but my face carved from stone. "No, Vanessa. Exactly now." Maya appeared at the side of the stage, handing me the USB. The host, flustered, started to intervene, but I turned to him with calm authority. "Please, just put this on the screen." Something in my tone, sharp, certain, made him obey. A technician slotted the drive, and the giant screens flickered. The theater went silent. Then, the project timeline. File after file appeared, scrolling across the screen. Pulse concept VXCW.docs edits, revisions, late night saves, each tagged with my name. Dozens of them, each timestamps at ungodly hours. Then, weeks later, a sudden jump, final_vh.pptx. One file, no groundwork, just Vanessa's initials slapped onto the end. The sequence played like a crime documentary. The audience watched in stunned silence as the truth unfolded. Undeniable, undeniable, undeniable. I let the silence breathe before I spoke again. "Funny thing about lies," I turned to Vanessa, my voice low but carrying. "Technology remembers the truth." A gasp, then a ripple of murmurs, sharp and spreading. Vanessa's mask cracked. Her lips trembled. This is manipulation. She's twisting." I cut her off. "Twisting? No. This is version history. This is evidence. Every pixel, every line of text, every late night revision is mine. You know how I know?" I stepped closer, my words like ice. "Because you were never there." These screens flashed again. This time, security logins from the office server. Late nights, weekends, every timestamp tied to my ID. All eyes turned to him. He opened his mouth, closed it, sweat breaking across his forehead. He looked like a man standing in quicksand. The host adjusted his mic nervously. "Well, it appears we have a situation." The crowd erupted. Some shouted Vanessa's name like an accusation. Others laughed in disbelief. A few even clapped for me. I looked at Vanessa one last time. Her face had gone pale, her fingers clutching the award like it might dissolve. I leaned in just enough for the front row to hear. "Winner tonight." I whispered, cold and deliberate. "Truth. Not you." The words spread through the room like fire. Applause swelled, drowning out Vanessa's sputtered denials. Cameras flashed, capturing her frozen with the trophy in her hands, suddenly transformed from starlet to thief. Maya joined me on stage, standing tall at my side. Together, we faced the crowd as the truth roared louder than Vanessa's lies ever had. The host, regaining composure, cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a short break." The audience stood, buzzing, already pulling out phones to post, to share, to tear Vanessa apart online. Her downfall had begun in real time. And I stood under the lights, calm and unshaken. I hadn't stolen her spotlight. I'd simply revealed who it had always belonged to. The after party wasn't a celebration, it was a crime scene. Not literally, but reputations bled out in the corners, whispers pooling like dark stains. Everywhere I turned, I caught fragments. Can you believe? She stole the whole thing. Career suicide. Vanessa sat in the lounge, mascara streaking, Daniel at her side like a guard dog who would suddenly realize his leash was frayed. No one approached them. People gave them the kind of space usually reserved for disease. Maya and I found a quiet table. She raised a glass of champagne, her eyes gleaming. To justice served with a savage twist. I smirked. Cheers. Our glasses clinked, sharp in the hosh. I didn't stay long. I didn't need to. The internet was already doing the rest for me. Hashtags trending, clips going viral, frame by frame analysis of the live version history reveal. By morning, the industry woke to headlines. Award winner exposed as fraud live on stage. Vanessa Hale's career in flames after shocking reveal. Her agency released a statement, then retracted it, then deleted their socials altogether. Daniel went radio silent. And me, I walked into Halden & Co. Monday morning to the loudest silence I'd ever heard. Every eye followed me. Some curious, some odd, some guilty for not speaking up sooner. Mr. Callahan, the director, called me into his office. He looked haggard, like he hadn't slept. Claire, what you did out there, gutsy. Risky. He exhaled, leaning back. But necessary. He slid a folder across the desk. A promotion. Senior Creative Director. My name, not hers. I took it without a word. Just a faint smile. Vanessa never came back. Rumors said Daniel dumped her the same week. Word spread that no agency would touch her. Radioactive was the term one executive used. But the best part, months later, I got an invite. The board had decided to revoke her award officially. They'd asked me to present at the following year's ceremony, not as a nominee, as a guest of honor. I stood on that stage, the same one where Vanessa had once clutched a trophy, and looked out at the glittering sea of faces. I didn't thank anyone. I didn't cry. I didn't pretend to be humble. I just said, clear and cold, truth doesn't need applause. It just needs witnesses. The room erupted. And somewhere, watching from the shadows of her broken career, I knew Vanessa heard it too. Because the thing about thieves, they never expect the spotlight to burn. So, what do you think? Did Vanessa get what she deserved? In my world, truth burns brighter than trophies. If you loved this story of savage revenge, hit that like button. Share it with someone who loves justice served cold. And don't forget to subscribe to Savage Revenge for many more stories like this.